afternoon, and welcome to the Henry Schein Dental Academy webinar series. My name is Corinne, and I will be your moderator. We are excited to welcome Carrie Webber, Chief Communications Officer and owner at the Jameson Group, as our speaker tonight. She will be taking a deep dive of the onboarding process so you can confidently determine how to improve your training effectiveness. Before we get started, we have a few reminders for you. At any point during the webinar, if you have questions, please type them into the Q&A section of your control panel, and we will answer them live at the end. Henry Schein is not offering CE credits for viewing or attending this presentation, live or on demand. And this webinar is sponsored by Jameson Dental. Carrie, welcome, and thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much, Corinne. I appreciate you being with me this evening. And thanks to all of you that are joining me after what I can only imagine has been a very full day, wherever you are in the world. So for those of you that have ever been on live with me at a Henry Schein webinar, I love to hear from you. So in the chat, let me know where you're coming from, where you're at in the world this evening. Let me know in the chat where you're located. I'd love to see where everyone's gathering from this evening. I'm right here in the middle of the United States. I'm in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, and watching a beautiful sunset from my office window as I join you all this evening. Dallas, Texas, thank you so much for joining us. Minneapolis, thank you for being with us from Minnesota. It's great to have you. St. Louis, Missouri, home of those Cardinals. Thanks so much for being with us. Bradenton, Florida, so thrilled to have you. Thank you for all of you all over the place. And now here we are all together, thanks to our friends at Henry Schein. Oh, and the great state of Maine, Albany, New York. Thank you all so much. We are all here because more than likely you've signed up to join this webinar with me because you're either trying to find team members, you're in the process of hiring and searching for team, you've already hired someone and you're looking for a way to effectively onboard them into your practice and into your work days, or perhaps you're trying to hold on to your team that you have now and trying to figure out a way how you can be more effective as a team, more efficient, and to strengthen the practice culture that you've created. Whatever the reasons are that have led you here, I've been really looking forward to being with you this evening and have been working on this presentation because, quite frankly, as a fellow business owner and business leader, it's just as important to me. And I've gone through this many times in searching for team and talent, both in our business and hygiene and marketing coaching firm of Jameson, but also in our beta dental practice here in Oklahoma City, where we partner with a young practicing dentist and helping her find talent and team that really engages in her purpose and vision for her practice. So I understand where you are right now and what an unusual season we're in terms of the true demand for employees across every industry is just unheard of. Everyone is looking for talent and hiring and seeking out people to join their teams, not just in dentistry, but interestingly, in studies that are coming out by the Harvard Business Review, they're saying that healthcare is one of the most struggling professional industries that are struggling the most in finding employees. Technology and healthcare are the two that, based upon the surveys that HBR has provided, that are struggling the most. So I guess we're all in it together, guys. So here we go. Let's talk about hiring and training new team members and take a look at what we can be doing differently or better to try and either attract people to your practice, the right candidates for the roles you're looking for, how we can more effectively and efficiently get them up to speed, because that's something that we're finding quite frequently is you've been probably looking for someone for some time. The reason you're looking for a team member is you desperately need to fill that role in your practice. And oh, wouldn't we all like to have a magic wand and just immediately go straight to work, and everybody knows what to do and how to do it, and it's all so great, and now we can carry on. Unfortunately, it doesn't usually go that way, does it? We have to do a little bit of work to get it to where we need it to be, no matter how talented that person is. They're going to need our support to set them up to be successful in whatever role that they are taking on in your practice. So this evening, we're going to cover as best as I can. And let me tell you, I could have been going for days. We could be here, we could pull an all-nighter, you guys, and talk about this topic, because I want to try and briefly cover to the best of my ability and help you get some ideas or a fresh perspective on hiring, on onboarding, and retaining our team. Now, I'd also like to briefly make a statement that I nor my team at Jameson, we are not an HR firm. So your first step may be, if you aren't engaged with an HR firm that can help you be compliant and safe in your hiring and in your team and employment efforts, I highly encourage you to do so. Find that company and make sure that you are on the up and up in all of your state's regulations from that perspective. All of my perspective here is going to be from how we at Jameson work with dental practices across the country, and how I, as a business owner myself, have gone through this process and helping to trying the best as we can to find the right people, bring them on as successfully as possible, and create a culture and a relationship that allows them to thrive in the role that they embrace in your business, where they ultimately help you be successful and they want to stay for the long term. That's the retaining piece. So let's talk about, for a moment, I want to recognize that many of you are probably doing a lot of things very well. You're probably on the right track when it comes to searching for team, and perhaps you're just coming short because the demand is so strong in your area. It could be that you have a tremendous onboarding process and that person still left after just being there for 1 or 2 months, right? Or you may feel that you have a tremendous practice culture, and yet in the midst of the last 18 months to 2 years, you've lost some of your long-term team members and you're still feeling the pain from that loss of long-term team. I understand that you may hear things from me that you say, yeah. We're doing that. So the trick at this moment for you is that we have to continue to refine. Haven't found anybody and you've been looking for 2 months? Keep refining your efforts and how you're posting that position and how you're seeking out a candidate. Still feel like it's chaos all over the place in your practice and you thought you trained that person really well? We have to keep refining, so that it basically is like sharpening that saw, as Stephen Covey used to say. Continue to sharpen the saw of your efforts to get a better result and a better result. And we as leaders have to be open-minded enough that we recognize we can always do something better. Yeah. We've always done it this way though. Okay, great. So now we're going to need to do something differently because the reality of where we are right now demands it of us. Our agility at this point is being tested, and we have to open our minds and our thoughts to how can we do this better. So I'm curious in the chat if you are the doctor, if you're the practice owner, if you're the office manager, if you're a team member, if you're someone that's looking for a position right now, let me know in the chat what role and what function that you have in the practice and in the hiring, onboarding, or retention process. I'd love to know that from you so that I can speak to your specific situations. And let's continue on. Let's start with hiring. I love this quote: the who is more important than the what. The who is more important than the what. So we have to start thinking about hiring as, what ideally does this candidate hold in terms of being the ideal person for the position in your practice. Often we get ahead of ourselves, or we're so desperate just to fill the place that we have some generic job description. We just want a warm body that's done it before, so we don't have to teach them how to do it again. And all of that mindset is actually going to do you more harm than good if your vision for your practice is something better than what it is right now. So we have to start thinking about, ideally, in my mind's eye, what are the behaviors and characteristics of this position? What are things that they would be able to do and do well? Are they personable? Can they communicate? Do they know how you want your trays laid out for every procedure? How are they assisting you? Or how are they answering the telephone? Those characteristics, what are the values that are important to that person? And how do they align with yours? The who is more important than the what. I want to take a pause and invite you to download a free ebook that my team has worked with me on steps for talent management success. And what we mean by that are steps that you can take in your search or steps that you can take in your training to help you be more effective. If you want to pick up your phones, and I'm going to open the chat and see where you all, so we've got a lot of office managers here with us this evening. That's great. Thank you all so much for being with us. So I want you to take a picture of this QR code, and it should take you to a landing page that can allow you to download this complimentary ebook on how to attract and train up your new team members. So take a screenshot of that real quick, and we're going to move on. I'll have it for you again later. When you're thinking about what you've done so far, perhaps you're searching for team right now, you're coming up short, or no really great candidates are coming your way that are ideal for you. It's important that we start thinking about how can we get the right message in front of the right candidates, the right applicants. So you probably have done Indeed, and you probably posted it in your Minneapolis Dental Peeps or whatever Facebook group has the most traction in your area. And that's great. Keep doing that. I'm not saying not to do that. But it's important to remember that your message is just as important. What the message says is just as important as where the message is going. So let me give you an example. If you were a candidate, would this be attractive to you when you have to think about the demand of candidates, the demand of dental team members for practices across the country? Healthcare is one of the ones struggling the most in all industries in finding candidates. The demand far outweighs the supply. Busy office, looking for an office manager. Experience in insurance and quoting patient portions is required. Would love to hear from you. Now, I've obviously taken out some of the benefits and the details of the position, but what if it were this? Here's another, these are actual job posts from 2 different practices. This one's talking about, we're an optimal healthcare provider, team-centered work atmosphere, seeking a dynamic professional office manager to help us meet our goals. If you enjoy exceptional concierge-like service and excellent communication skills and possess these qualities, this position is for you. Now, which of these would you rather apply for? If I'm one of 70 practices in Oklahoma City looking for a business administrator right now, or a clinical assistant, or a hygienist, if I don't think about the words I'm putting out there and how they relate to the specific DNA of my practice, think again. It's just like marketing for new patients at this point. You need to be marketing yourself to the right candidates for your practice. So take a look at your job post. What's it say? If you were somebody looking for a job right now, would it be even remotely interesting to you to apply for that position? It really does make a difference. And then I want you to check your online presence, because you know what? Those potential employees are. These are some snapshots of a client's Meet Us about their team homepage on their website, which, by the way, the About You page on your website is the second highest trafficked page on your website, according to research that we've done on our marketing clients. So is it up to date? Is it professional? Does it look enjoyable? Are you highlighting your team? Also, do you have an up-to-date social media presence? This is one of our clients, Jameson Dental, and their Facebook page, and then that's some of our Instagram photos. Does it look like a place that you'd want to be? And guess what? Your patients are looking at reviews, and so are your potential team members. So taking a look at your presence, how attractive would it be? How interesting would it be to work for your practice based upon what they can find about you online? Now, also posting on social media, if you're looking for new places to post your positions, Facebook in this top part is an area where you can actually post jobs and people can apply directly from Facebook for positions. LinkedIn is, the professional networking social media page. Have you ever considered posting there? And then this is on Instagram. Now, this is a little store that I love. And here's what I love about this is that this is an Instagram post that they created. And then they shared testimonials of employees about what it's like to work there. I just think that's brilliant, because if your current team loves working there, why don't we allow them to have a platform to share that so that others can see how great it is? It's really a representation of your practice culture. So these are ways to utilize social media. You can create sponsored posts where you can dive in to specific demographics. So if you're looking for people that have listed dental assistant, dentistry in their pages, that's where those ads are going to pop up, or for people like that. So look from a different angle at, okay, here are the things we've done. Here's where we posted it. How can we reword it and make it better? How can we use other tools that we have access to, such as social media, to get the word out even stronger to attract the right people? Remember how I said that your candidates are going to be like a new patient? I want you to represent excellence in that whole interview process and that whole conversation process, where you're thinking about the qualities that you're looking for, you're asking the right questions in a way that helps you to make a decision more quickly. I've always been of the theory that you want to hire slow and hire right. And you're probably saying, yeah, Carrie, it's about as slow as it can get right now. But it means that you still have to have the right questions at the ready so you can get the answers that you need to make the right decision. It doesn't matter if there's only one clinical assistant within a 50-mile radius of you. If they are the wrong fit for your practice, it's going to still do you more harm than good, bringing someone that's not right for you into your team. So think about the questions you need to ask. Think about who needs to meet this person. Streamline the entire process. Now, I hear a lot that we're getting a lot of no-show interviewees. Well, the fact of the matter is, on their side, that's really bad etiquette. So let's just go ahead and call that what it is. But that being said, this is the reality. They're more than likely interviewing at multiple places, and they're choosing someone else before they even get to you. So creating that value add process, just like when you're confirming appointments for a new patient that has no value in you yet, sharing information about the practice with them after you've set up a time for them to come in and interview, confirming that appointment or that call, or when they're coming into the practice, and making sure they have the directions and what they need. Really laying on that customer service aspect of what you do well in your practice can help to not only confirm so that you know they're showing up and you could, if they're not coming, I'd rather know sooner rather than later, right? But also we're showing them what they can be a part of simply by creating the same experience for them that you would create for an extremely valuable new patient. Represent excellence and roll out that red carpet. I want you to start thinking, if it's difficult to find somebody, especially on the business side. Now, I understand if it's hygienists that you're looking at, where your hands are really tied, so you have to start exploring how we do this differently. But in certain aspects of your practice and certain roles, Where are we often erring on the side of experience instead of looking for that optimal potential? If you had a training process in place, which we're going to get to soon, and you really onboarded people in an effective manner, that can often be a more successful approach than bringing on 40 pounds of baggage and not training a person. So, yes, I have over 20 years of dental experience. But if you set me at a desk in your practice and say, have at it, sister, I trust you, I'm going to do whatever I know to do and the way I know how to do it. If that is completely opposite of the rest of your team or your practice systems, guess what's going to start to fall away? Are the strong systems you work so hard to create in the first place. And it could also become an issue in terms of the team unity and the culture you've worked so hard to create as well. So look for that potential, look for the talent, and create ways to train up and set up people to be successful. So I had a lot of questions coming in prior to the webinar about what questions should I ask? Should I bring this person in for a working interview? We're really having trouble finding anybody, and I really think this person is good. What are steps that I should take? And almost all of those questions, I'm going to tell you, go to an HR firm. Have an HR firm at the ready that can give you those appropriate questions, that can give you the guidance that you need and can help you set up a successful working interview if that's something that you need. There are steps that you're going to need to take for your state to do that and do it right. And remember, the questions you ask are important too. If you get too personal, you're really getting into sensitive territory. And so you want to make sure you're keeping it as professional and work-based as you possibly can. So HR for Health, Cedar Solutions, Ben Erickson, these companies are here to help you in this area. And I really recommend that you reach out to them if you don't already have someone in your back pocket. So let's move on to onboarding. I know that there's a lot of questions more than likely about hiring, and you're struggling to find those right candidates. And I'm going to tell you, you just have to keep going and refine your process. Not getting anybody with that job posting, how can we rewrite it and make it better? Not getting anything on Indeed or Dental Post, where else can we post it and get the word out? Can we get some word of mouth support going? Anybody on the team knows some people, and start to spread the word in a different way using social media or whatever the case may be. I often think that businesses are afraid to post on their own personal business resources, either because maybe you don't want your friends applying, or you don't want to seem like maybe you feel like you're putting something out there that you don't want to, but why not? There's a great deal of talent that may never know you're looking, that's following you or following someone that works at your practice. And that can be a great connector for you. So keep refining, keep refining. Now let's look at onboarding. Larry Bossidy is one of the authors of a book called Execution. And we at Jameson are a big fan of this book. And so I love this quote that he says, that I'm convinced that nothing we do is more important than hiring and developing people. At the end of the day, you bet on people, not strategies. And so that leads me beautifully into, remember how we talked about rolling out the red carpet for your potential candidates, because we want them to really fall in love with you. We want them to choose you, not one of the other 3 people they're interviewing with, right? And so they've come on board, and now we want to continue to roll out the red carpet, because just like with new patients, their perception of their experience with you and their expectations are getting set in the very first few interactions with you. So if you have a standard of care or of excellence or of delivery in terms of how you want your team to perform, we want to be setting that expectation of excellence from the beginning. You need to represent it. If you represent the practice in a lackluster way in the onboarding process, it's not really boding well for them seeing any value in delivering exceptional service once they're in the practice and up and running and rolling in their position. So roll out that red carpet and think about how you can create an onboarding process that not only builds the value for being a part of your team, but it builds a value for what you do, how you do it, and why you do it the way you do. My husband and I start every new employee at Jameson off in an expectations conversation with us. We're the owners of the company, and our goal is on the first full day of full-time work with Jameson, an employee will spend time with us at some point in that day, talking about the history of our company, the vision of our company, our driving purpose as a business, and what our values are as a team, and with how we work as a team and how we work with clients. These are our core values and our mission, and a lot of what's most important to us that we've created over time. And we communicate this from us to the team. I learned this from Horst Schulte, who's the former COO and president of the Ritz-Carlton. He too used to do this. And so that's where I got it. And I embraced it with us for our teams, because he said this, our behavior as adults is pretty much set when we hit adulthood, except during major changes of life, such as a new job. And so if we set expectations of behavior and performance and what's most important in how we work, it's going to have more stickiness if we start that from the very beginning. His example is first day of work, you show up 5 minutes early. Second week of work, you show up on time. Third week of work, you're 5 minutes late, and so on. So we want to set expectations from the very beginning. So my question for all of you is, when you do hire someone, is that an intentional piece of the puzzle for you when you're bringing someone on, that they spend time with you or with your doctors and with leadership, understanding the why of the practice, the where we're going and how we do this, and what's expected as a member of your team? I encourage you to incorporate that into your onboarding and training process as soon as possible. And please create a process, a training process, training steps. This is something that so many people don't do. You don't even have a process. You just wing it. You're winging it. With every new hire, you're winging it. And then 3 months down the road, you're frustrated with that person because they're not doing things the way you want them to do it. And we're expecting them to perform at the level you want them to by just telling them things in passing. Now, I'm not saying this is you. Maybe I'm getting a little preachy. So maybe it's not you. Maybe you do this really well. Maybe we could make this process better. But if you don't have a training process and plan, you're automatically going to stress yourself out, and that person's not going to know how to do things well. And it's going to do more harm than good, because you're going to spend more time fixing behaviors or the way that they do things for months and months and months and months. If we had just spent the time at the beginning teaching them the right way at the first. So what does every new hire need to know? Do you have a working list of what are some of the unspoken things about our practice, our culture, how we work together that each new hire would need to know? You know, just like the vision and expectations conversation that the owners and leadership need to have, what are some of those unspoken things? Let's take the time to educate them on that. When you're onboarding and training, the clarity and consistency is key. We want to make sure that you have clear roles and responsibilities for each position. So the person coming on, is there a clear document of their roles and responsibilities? Do they have access to that? Have you given it to them? Do they know where it is? Have they read through it, and do they understand? Are we documenting the progress of training? Yes, we've trained her on the telephone. We've trained him on Dentrix and how to schedule appropriately. We've trained him on hygiene retention process. All of those things, we want to be checking it off the list and documenting, yes, done, 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 done. And so that takes a training plan and a schedule. Now, many of you on here are doctors or office managers, and you may be thinking, oh my God, Carrie, geez, I have no time to do this. I'm going to tell you, you don't have time not to do this. Because when we find somebody great and we capture that person as a member of our team, we want to get them up and running and really succeeding at superstar level as soon as possible. And if we're not taking the time to train them, it's going to be a long, hard hill to climb. So we also need to remember that if you're working together as a team on this training process, you can delegate out pieces of this puzzle. I've talked with a doctor before about a new team member on the clinical side and the frustration of that this person wasn't doing things the way that everybody wanted her to do it. And I said, well, has anybody trained her on that? And they were like, well, we think so, but there was no confirmation that that indeed was done. And I said, who's the champion? Who does this really well, that that person can shadow for a few hours and they can work on that together and prioritize that time. So you can delegate this out to different members of your team and have a working schedule that everyone follows. And making sure you're taking intentional time, especially early on in employment, to have time together to review what's been covered, make time for questions, work through anything that they're stuck on. Because if we can batch questions time, even if it's like once a day for the first couple of weeks, and then maybe a couple times a week and so on, that's going to be helpful for your sanity, because eventually you get asked so many questions in a day. And now, where was that? Now, how do I do this? Now, what am I? That you are going to be done. You're going to be done. I'm done. I don't want to answer another question. So if we help them understand, let's batch them and let's talk like at lunch, and then let's talk at the end of the day, or whatever the case may be, so that you can have the time to focus and it doesn't take you away from all the other responsibilities that you have in the day. Progress review, progress of the training. So let me give you an example. Clear roles and responsibilities. Now, these are just the first few of several more lists of roles and responsibilities for a business administrator, but I just took a picture of as much that I could fit on the screen. So you can think about this of writing out the roles and responsibilities. Do you have this for each position? And then when you think about, well, how do I create a training schedule? Well, what do they need to know about each of these things? And then listing out, well, they need to know this and this and this. They need to know how we answer the phone. They need to know where we change our voice message for the holidays. They need to know, and so on. And where to check for messages. And if you're on Weave, we need to show them that. If we are on, if we have Dentrix and we're sending out emails, whatever the case may be. So you need to have a list of the things within that, and then prioritize what do they need to learn first so that they can get going on something. So make the clear roles and responsibilities, put in within each of those steps what they need to know to do that part well, and then prioritize which areas do we need to train first. Then I want you to digitize, delegate, and track that training. This is going to take a while. But you know what? If you take it in little bits of time, and a lot of people are taking on parts of the responsibility, it's a whole different vibe. It's not all left to one person to make sure this person's up and running and going. Because what happens is eventually, on Monday and Tuesday, you're trying really hard. And then by Thursday, you're like, can't you just at least answer the phone and check a person out, for crying out loud? So we need to make sure we're delegating, digitizing, and tracking the training. Steps to effective training are to define each task of the roles, define the role, define all the things that they're responsible for, demonstrate those pieces that they're responsible for. Remember, like I said, demonstrate how you want the telephone answered, demonstrate how you want to schedule someone for certain procedures, demonstrate all of how you block the schedule, demonstrate how you send out emails, demonstrate how you want a room set up, demonstrate how, and so on. So demonstrate it, and then have them shadow you or someone on your team that does that role, have them observe shadowing someone else doing it so they can see it. So you're telling them, you're showing them, they're seeing it, and then you observe them doing it. Okay, Carrie, now show me how you would do it. And observe that. And then that gives you the opportunity to coach them through any adjustments that they need to make. And then once they're able to do it on their own, you can delegate that to them. Check. So this is what effective training for adults looks like. We need to define what the roles are, what the responsibilities are, demonstrate how those things are done, allow them to see someone in the team doing those things, observe them actually doing it, and then we can delegate it on. That's a really great training schedule. Now, don't worry about what's on here. This is a snippet of a training schedule for a Jameson employee. I wanted to show you how we break it down by days, how we break it down by what it's done and that we have it completed. And I wanted you to see that there are 4 different people listed over here. Ryan, Drew, Suzanne, and Becky are all different members of our team doing pieces of these trainings. They do these things well. And so they're helping this new team member get up to speed on how to do all of this. So that's just an example that was done in a Google sheet and shared with everybody, and we can track it in real time. Now, I just off the top of my head thought, well, if it were me, if it were me and I were bringing in a new employee into my practice, here are some things I would want to make sure I spend time on with them on day 1. I want to welcome them in the huddle. I want to give them a tour of the facility again. I want to give a tour of the technology that we use or that they may be using, an introduction to each member of the team, or a reintroduction if they've met in the interview process. I want the owners or the practice leaders to have expectation and vision cast time with them. I want to review their roles and responsibilities. I want to review my personnel policy. I want to review top items that all of our team must know about how we work together, have lunch together, and go into some specific training for their role, and then allow them some time to do some self-led training, whether that's reading or videos, training on software, Jameson's Grow platform, and so on. And leaving time for in the day to review what we've covered, answer any questions, and talk about next steps that we're going to cover in the future. That's a pretty solid day 1. And you're like, oh my God, I'm overwhelmed. Well, if we don't prioritize and block time to train up a person appropriately, it's going to take you a lot longer, and a lot more effort and a lot more headache. So when we create a process, we just know this is what we're going to do. On this day, Carrie's going to be doing all of these things. So that was just an if it were me scenario. So you can create this as a checklist. You can create this as a Google sheet. You can have a team meeting and talk about who can help with what aspect of training. Now, this is Jameson's Grow platform. This would be huge for you in terms of if you're a Jameson client, you have a new team member on board, or even if you're not, and you just want some really good systems, you want a really great new patient experience. You want help training someone how to effectively schedule. You want to train somebody on how to answer the telephone. Well, all of those things are learning pathways on Jameson's Grow platform. And so I want to invite you to go back to this. You can sign up. You can go find the Grow website through the landing page I shared with you earlier that has the downloadable ebook. Go look at that. Henry Schein gets a really great first month to kind of try it out, take it for a test drive, and see if it would be a helpful tool for you in your continuous training for your existing team, for yourself, and especially for new team members. Because if it were me, I would have them spending time every day in the first few days of their time in my practice, getting up to speed on what right looks like for me in some of the foundational systems of your practice and skill sets. Because if they do that, they're already 3 steps ahead of being familiar with what we're expecting of them. And then our training takes on a whole different look, doesn't it? We can talk about, well, okay, what are your questions about the telephone lessons that were on there? Let's talk about what that looks like in our practice. And you can track what they've completed. They have to take quizzes to make sure that they're retaining it and listening. And so it's a huge beneficial training tool for you and your team. Your training program should help new team members get fully invested, get fully productive, and get interested in being successful for your practice and with your team. We are trying to integrate them into an established team and an established practice culture. And we have got to get them interested, invested, and productive as soon as possible. And that's what making a plan and a schedule will do for you. And yes, it's going to take time. You have to commit, block the time. If it's, I have all these things to do in a day, okay, where can you block an hour, 2 hours to work with Jane on XYZ and get her going at least to a point where she can do some of these other things while you work on the things that are eating away at your desk, waiting to be done. So prioritizing time, blocking time, just like you would prioritize time with a patient. That's how valuable this training time is going to be for the practice. My father, Dr. John Jameson, always says that some of the best investments he ever made was in the investment of time working with his team on the practice, not just in it. So that starts with training new team. Hire character, train skill. You can do it. I've actually heard of some great young doctors on the East Coast that I've worked with that they find the talent, they find the character of things from people that have nothing to do with dentistry. They're like, I'm going to teach you. I'm going to teach you, and you're going to be amazing. You're going to love it. And these people are loyal rock star employees. So hire the character, train the skill. And that leads us to retaining. I also got some questions in emails prior to this session about how do we coach and course correct our existing team when hiring is such a problem right now. So there's not just this fear of, will I ever find a new team member for my practice? It's a fear of, I don't want to lose a team member. So if you want to create an environment that, nurtures your amazing team and wants them to stay there and not be lured away by somebody else, we have to work proactively at that. But I also want to give a word of warning. If you have someone that's not a good fit in your practice right now, someone that's toxic, someone that's underperforming, and you've done all the necessary course correction and it's still not working out, you're being cornered. You're being held up by this. And so it might be important to start thinking about, how can we do this? I need to have this conversation come what may, because we can no longer move forward in the way that this person's performing. So don't allow yourself to get stuck in the fear of what if. Remember, you as a business owner and a business leader still have to move that needle forward. So let's talk about how we retain. Systems matter, communications matters, and culture matters. So we have to be working intentionally on these areas. So where in your practice, when it comes to communicating with team about expectations, holding people accountable, setting goals, accomplishing action items, delivering excellence in all aspects of the patient experience, working as a healthy, happy team, where are we being intentional and where are we being accidental? It may be time to do a vision cast, doctors, practice leaders, to the team of, here's what right looks like in my mind's eye. Here's what we're going to be striving toward, and here's what we're going to be holding each other accountable to. Here are the values that are most important to us as a team, working with each other, and how we work with our patients. Become more intentional and make room for engagement. Ask yourself questions like this. And if it were me, I would have these conversations with my team. If we're understaffed and we're all stressed to the max, and we can't find that new clinical assistant to save our lives, I would start having conversations like this with the team. What do we need? What do we want? What is important? What must change? What would make us healthier and happier in the right now? How do we need to do things differently for now? How could we do this to continue on in the interim until that superstar is found? What do we need to start? What do we need to stop? And what do we need to keep? What right looks like right now may be different than what right looks like in your ideal world 5 years from now. And we may need to accept that we need to create an approach and a model that supports your practice being as healthy as possible, but also supports you, doctors, office managers, team members to be healthy too. So having these conversations together, I'm a fool if I think I'm the only person on my team that has a great idea. So maybe we need to start asking, how can we do this differently right now to support the patients and help the days go smoothly and efficiently? Okay, we have a new person coming on. How can we train them as quickly as possible, but also as successfully as possible? Where could we look? And having these kind of brainstorm problem-solving conversations together. But leaders, if you haven't asked these questions of yourself yet, that's where you need to start getting clear on what you need and want, what right looks like, and how we can use our time more effectively. looking at things from a different perspective, from a different standpoint. When you're hiring and when you're onboarding someone, taking it from the perspective of that new employee or that potential employee, what would be ideal for them to see or experience to get the true feeling of what's most important in this practice? What do we need to do as a team to stay united and engaged? How do we run this practice right now, short-staffed, overwhelmed, whatever the case may be? I want you to think about what the model of what right looks like is for you. At Jameson, we believe in a model of success where we see fewer patients in a day, doing more dentistry per patient when and where that's appropriate, seeing patients for fewer appointments, maximizing a minimal team so that we're developing skills within the team. Are you in a state where your assistants can do extended duties, expanded duties? Are you letting them? Are they trained? Are you investing in training for your team to be able to do more? And you can do more with the people that you have. I talked to a doctor just recently that lost an associate and they thought the world was going to come to an end. And he's discovered that with the team he kept on, he's more productive as a solo practitioner and happier than he was with an associate. So what if what right looks like changes for a little while and we make the most of who we have that's committed to us and wants to do good work together? We want to maximize that minimal team. We want to develop them and grow. We want to share the rewards of work well done with each other. When we're not maxed out beyond capacity and overhead and all the costs and expenses that come, we are able to share more of the reward with the people that help bring that to the table for you. So thinking about that, and that we do everything we can to create great systems and become as efficient as we can in the work that we do to reduce stress. That's what we want to create in a model for your practice. So what's missing in what the reality is for you? When it comes to this, I want you to consider, if you're not having regular, consistent, committed, intentional, planned out team meetings where we're having growth topics, where we're talking about what we need to change or do differently and engaging the team in their ideas, I encourage you to do so. If you're feeling strapped for time, do a procedure analysis to make sure everybody that's clinical and even on the business side is on the same page about how to schedule, how to set up, how to help run that procedure ideally for you doctors. Doing time and motion studies to make sure, do we really need another business team member, or could we just rearrange the roles and responsibilities here? Could we outsource some of the needs that we have so that people that are in the practice can do what only they can do and outsource some of the responsibilities that others can do? eAssist, for example, is a company that you can outsource collections and billing and some of your insurance pieces to. And there's a lot of companies that can help streamline some of the systems that are most important in your practice that could be sucking the time and the life out of you, making you think you need a fourth, fifth, sixth person, when really we could perhaps put people in new seats on the bus, as Jim Collins says, and outsource some of those other things. Prioritization, what's most important? What are the highest, best use of our time? Delegation, delegating things to others and leaving only what you can do on your plate. Refining your schedule, getting that model of success into place. How can we be as productive as possible, but also as healthy as possible as a team with who we have in place right now? Blocking training time, prioritizing the time to effectively train your existing team and especially new team members to set them up for success. Incorporating goal setting and action planning so that we're all striving for something positive that we can celebrate. And then we're also taking action and getting momentum. So we're procrastination, putting things off. You can reduce that sense of Groundhog Day that you might feel like you're living in, that stuckness, when we can track and measure progress and recognizing work well done. When we're super stressed and overwhelmed, we can't find that person or we need somebody, we often forget to recognize when the things that we do well. So don't forget to recognize work well done, because appreciation is one of the highest motivators for employees. When you think about engagement, And many studies have shared that when it comes to engagement in employment, people want a place where they can communicate, where their voice can be heard, where they can be a part of the solutions, where they feel safe to share ideas or even concerns or feedback. But it's also a place where, engagement happens when they have a place where they feel like they can be developed, where they can grow, where they can improve, where they can see their career expanding into more opportunities or more responsibilities. They also believe that engagement occurs when there's a place where a person's well-being is actually important, or seems important to the leaders. So you care about your team. So are we doing things that reflect those aspects of team engagement? Because when you create a culture that is positive and a healthy, as Kathy Jameson calls it, a healthy work environment, that word starts to travel. And when excellence is at the top of the list and a really healthy work culture is talked about, people want to go there. Here's my buddy, Horst Schulze, formerly of the Ritz-Carlton, who says, to make excellence in service a reality, not just a label, we have to hire the right kind of people and orient them thoroughly at the start. And then we have to repeat our values again and again and again. Repetition is the key to learning. And so you may be doing a lot of things well, but where are you being more accidental than intentional? Where can we adapt and be more agile and adjust? Maybe we have some utility players on the team that can really help us out. And are we showing appreciation for the team that's sticking with you? We need to celebrate those people that are putting their effort into your practice vision while we are looking for or training up or incorporating new people into your practice as well. I want to encourage you, get that hiring and training the right team ebook so that you can have something to reference and look at, check out, grow. But also, if you want to have a conversation with what building a healthier culture in your practice, building that patient experience, or creating systems that are more trainable to your team, I'd be happy to have a conversation with you personally. And you can schedule a discovery call with me by calling this number or emailing us at info@jmsn.com. You'd schedule a conversation with me to talk about your practice, where you are now, what your goals are, and ways that Jameson could potentially support you and your vision of what's ideal in your future. So there's so much that we could talk about, and our time is coming to an end. And so I want to invite you, if you have questions, to please feel free to pop those into the chat. But if not, I want you to know that you have to go the distance. It's basically Field of Dreams here, people. If you build it, they will come. You have to keep refining your efforts. And in the meantime, exploring, how can we do this differently? How can we do this better for now? And then when we can embrace a new person into our team, how can we make them successful and integrate them as a successful, contributing, and all-in member of our practice team and culture for the betterment of your practice future, but most importantly, for your patients. And with that, I want to thank all of you for being with me this evening. And Corinne, I will pass it back over to you.
Thank you, Carrie, for a great presentation, and thanks to Jameson Dental for sponsoring this webinar. If anyone has questions or would like to schedule a complimentary discovery call, in addition to the contact information that Carrie shared that's on the screen, you can also email us at webinars@henryschein.com on the slide right now, and we will be happy to get you more information. As a thank you for attending, everyone will receive the recording via email in the next week. So thank you all for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you on future webinars. You can visit henryscheindental.com/webinars to find out more. But thank you again, and we'll see you soon.